Hello, I am Elijah Armstrong. I'm a lighter skinned black male with shorter locks wearing a white t shirt, and this is one of our 2022 2023 Heumann-Armstrong Award videos. For those of you who don't know, the Heumann-Armstrong Award is a scholarship for students in the 6th grade and up, including all forms of higher education, who've experienced and fought against ableism in education. Each one of our winners receives a $1,000 monetary prize, and we also shoot a video with them, giving them the chance to tell their story. And this is one of those videos. So we are really happy to introduce you to Sueli Gwiazdowski. On screen now are the logos for all four organizations: the American Association of People with Disabilities, the Quello Center, Equal Opportunities for Students, and Esquire Bank. On screen now is the logo for the Heumann-Armstrong Award and white text on a gray background that reads, "Present 2022-2023 Heumann-Armstrong Award winner Sueli Gwiazdowski," illustrated by Access Gallery.
Hi, my name is Sueli. I use they, them, and she, her pronouns. I'm a junior at Whitman College, and I'm from San Diego, California.
A headshot of Sueli Gwiazdowski, a white Latina with green eyes and long wavy brown hair. She is wearing a black floral print dress, a gold herringbone necklace, and gold wire-framed circular glasses.
I am a white Latina with shoulder length, just past shoulder length, brown hair. I'm wearing gold framed glasses and a light green shirt.
An illustration of Sueli in the same position.
I was born with a genetic connective tissue disorder that was diagnosed when I was in high school, and it manifested itself mostly in my spine, and as a result, I have some neurological complications, and I use a wheelchair and crutches.
Sueli using a power wheelchair.
I think the first time I remember experiencing ableism was in elementary school. At that point, I was not using mobility aids and was still playing sports. And I remember I wasn't running as fast as my peers during physical education, and someone made fun of me for it. And for the rest of my elementary school and middle school career, I was known as like the slow walker and the slow runner. And that was something I really resented and something that I hated about myself until I really started exploring my disabled identity in high school, when I was diagnosed with the genetic condition, when my condition progressed to the point that I was using mobility aids. That was around the first time that I sort of realized that that was ableism.
Sueli being teased by other students in gym class.
A lot of the ableism I experienced in high school had to do with having a primary and a secondary diagnosis, and that I had mental health diagnoses and also physical health diagnoses. And
a person experiencing both mental health and physical health challenges.
When I was going through the diagnostic process related to my physical health disabilities, a lot of the adults in my life, mostly my teachers and my special education team, didn't believe me and treated me as though I was feigning symptoms and a condition to get attention. So much so that I had special education case managers calling my physicians and psychologists without consent from me or my parents, trying to pry and trying to understand what was going on. And
a teacher secretly calling Sueli's doctors.
And the high school that I went to was not entirely ADA compliant. And when the question of accommodating my physical access needs came up my sophomore year of high school, I was told that the high school campus was a historical site and that they could accommodate me to a certain extent, but because I was still undergoing the diagnostic process, that I was not entitled to the same physical access accommodations that my other peers with disabilities were entitled to. And in my sophomore year of high school, I was forced to transfer from one high school to another because my then IEP team determined that the general education high school setting that I was in was not my least restrictive environment, which is essentially a technical or fancy way of saying that the public school I went to did not believe that they could accommodate me. And so they forced me to transfer into a highly restrictive full-time special education program where I was receiving full-time special education. I was in a portable unit that was segregated from the rest of the general education campus. There were probably close to 10 students in this program.
Sueli being forced to attend school in a portable.
And I was not allowed to interact with the non-disabled students without an aid. I was not able to form connections with people naturally. And if I wanted to take a class outside of that special education environment, I had to petition to do so, which I was only successful in doing twice that entire academic year. And my mom and I had a number of IEP meetings with this public special education program, essentially arguing, bickering for hours about what my access needs were while I was in the room. I was saying what my access needs were clearly and with my education in mind, and was being told that I didn't know what my needs were.
Adults shouting at Sueli and not letting her speak.
And it all felt so ironic because when you go through special education, something that you get told over and over again is that the point is to help you recognize what your access needs are and help you become independent and help you assert what your needs are in those exact settings. That's what they're essentially allegedly training you to do throughout special education. And so when I was advocating for myself and begging to be heard, it all just felt so ironic to also be told, you don't really know what your access needs are. You're too crazy. You're out of control. Eventually, after months and months of arguing with the special education team, my mom and I drove over to a local law school and asked a random law school student to sit in on an IEP meeting with us. And my mom and I did not have the money to reach out to an attorney or an advocacy group. No one wanted to help us pro bono. And we also just didn't have the connections or the resources to reach out to anyone. My mom and I are both English second language speakers. And at that point, we were being given mountains of paperwork with language that was entirely inaccessible. We were never given information in our native language. And so picking up a random law student at a local law school made the most sense. That was what we had access to, and the plan that we came up with that made the most sense, that was financially accessible to us. And I think we
Sueli and Sueli's mom at a coffee shop asking a law student for support.
paid this law student like $40 and bought them like a couple bagels, and they sat down at that meeting and took notes and scared the heck out of that IEP team. And it was so funny because not even a week after we had that attorney sit down in that room with us who was speaking English as their first language and who knew the vocabulary and the language, I was finally given the opportunity to amend my IEP so that I was able to transfer into a less restrictive program, a general education program.
Sueli being allowed to attend a general education high school.
I didn't have the time or the money at that point to take any college entrance exams, but I knew that I wanted to go to school. And so when I graduated from high school in 2019, I immediately signed the lease on a house in Walla Walla, Washington, and drove up with my mom. And I enrolled at the local community college, Walla Walla Community College, with the hope of one day attending Whitman College because I knew that they had a robust debate team.
Sueli starting at Walla Walla Community College.
And throughout that entire experience of being forced to transfer schools and being told that I had to be within the most restrictive environment possible, I was also being denied my debate career. And in my freshman and sophomore years of high school, I was an active debater. I was participating in policy debate for 20 plus hours a week. And at that point had already gone to the California State Championships. And it was something that I was extremely passionate about. And so to be ripped away from my friends and from my community that I had been part of at that older high school, and to be taken away from this thing that I had become passionate about, debate, put into this restrictive setting, all of that, in and of itself was extremely traumatizing. But when I got to the community college, I faced a number of access barriers that I think had been largely ignored for a number of years. I was not able to get through doors without nearly falling out of my wheelchair because of thresholds.
Sueli struggling to enter a door because it's too narrow for her wheelchair.
I, along with a number of other students with disabilities on that campus, were able to sort of band together and corner the college into replacing a number of thresholds. And it's wild that in 2019, 2020, even today, that replacing thresholds at a community college is a feat 30-something years after the Americans with Disabilities Act became law. After I accepted my transfer offer to Whitman College, I immediately started working on disability-related organizing on campus. And I found that not only was there no history of a disability affinity group on campus or disability space, the culture of this college very much opposes disabled people organizing. A big issue that we deal with at Whitman is that the majority of off-campus housing is not accessible here, including the properties owned by the college. So we have an entire interest house block for different interests like Casa Hispania, the French house, the fine arts house, the writing house, Mecca. None of those houses are ADA compliant. Regardless of how interested I am in the fine arts, I will never be able to live in the fine arts house. And the same goes for the fraternities and the sororities. No matter how much I care about my own sorority, and no matter how much I put into my position as the vice president of my sorority, I will never be able to live in the sorority space that is owned by my college. Just like all of my other sorority sisters and all of my friends who are fraternity men.
Sueli stuck outside an inaccessible sorority house.
I did not get to have the on-campus housing dorm experience that is required of students for the first 2 years largely because of the inaccessibility. Let's say I live on campus and all of my friends in my dorm section are going to go hang out with someone else in another dorm section, but that dorm section happens to be entirely ADA and compliant. And this isn't like an imagined story. This has actually happened to me, but as an off-campus student, so it was less impactful. But if I was on campus, I would have to reckon with the fact that I was on campus in that moment and with this group of people. Now all of a sudden, all of my friends have gone away to a place that I cannot enter.
Sueli leaving their friends because they're going to an inaccessible location.
After everything I've been through in high school, and after how hard I had to fight to get to college, and how hard I had to fight to fund my college through the Bates Scholarship that I'm on now, and how difficult it is on a day-to-day basis to exist as a disabled student on a college campus, where your existence is inherently countercultural. It is wild to me that I am still dealing with ableism, blatant ableism, in the exact spaces that are supposed to be dismantling them. I think the disability rights movement has always been a source of hope for me through the experiences that I have had, and in the moments that I have seriously considered dropping out of school, especially when I was in high school. I had considered dropping out of high school a number of times because of inaccessibility and ableism. I think that the disability rights movement, and knowing about the disability rights movement as a high schooler, was the reason why I stayed in school and was the reason why I pursued a higher education. Advice that I would give to students with disabilities in school right now is to stay active and engaged in all of the meetings and conversations pertaining to your access needs and your disabilities. Start those conversations, and importantly, don't be afraid to be the first. It's very scary to be the first person to enter a space who exists from the positionality that you are in, whether that be the seat of a wheelchair or the first person to have a specific accommodation. But it is also so incredibly empowering and teaches you so much about yourself and about the world to be the first.
Sueli feeling empowered and leading a group of students. Thank you, Sueli, for sharing your story with us. You can hear more about Sueli in the description of this video, as well as more from all of the organizations that allowed this award to happen. We have 5 other winners of the Heumann-Armstrong Award this year, as well as 6 winners from last year, so please check out those stories as well. And yeah, check out more from all of the orgs that allowed this award to happen. Lead on, everyone.